So here's a look at the LP itself. The Burn and Hailing Waters were not hit singles, by the way. They were not even released as singles, so a little false advertising there. Just like No Protection, I do not have the inner sleeve. Look at that, it's empty. There's the back, right there. Fortunately, I do have the CD release, and there's lyrics, there's pictures of the band members. We have 3 changes this time around. First, we'll look at the players here. So Mickey Thomas is back on vocals, and he finds himself carrying all the vocals this time. All the lead vocals, I mean. Craig Chiquiso playing guitar again. Chiquiso, the last remaining link to the original JS. Here's a look at Dragonfly, the back. That's what he looked like in 1974. And he has made it all the way to 1989. Donnie Baldwin returns, his third. He played on all 3 Starship LPs plus the 1984 JS album Nuclear Furniture. Alright, so I talked about Brett Bloomfield on the last video briefly. He was seen in the Beat Patrol unofficial video, playing bass, contributing backing vocals. He joins as a replacement for, not really the replacement for Pete Sears, but the replacement for Peter Wolf, who did almost all the bass parts on No Protection. Also on the video, I didn't point this out, but Mark Morgan was also in that video. He was a touring member as well on the keyboards on the No Protection tour, and he officially joined Starship in 1989. So those two are back, and we have the official departure of one Grace Slick, who talked about there was a little fallout there, some growing animosity between her and Mickey, and by 1988 she walked away, and it wasn't an ugly departure. She was just she just had enough of the whole thing, and she'd gotten bored with it. So Grace Slick, we say goodbye to her. All right, we'll take a look at her here on the back of the Spitfire JSLP, and what a fascinating person she is in the history of rock. Really, one of the first ladies of rock and roll, and one of the characteristics about her is that she never had a tremendous ego, despite all of her success and popularity. And you can see this even back on the 1982, or was it 83, American Bandstand video, where she has the honor of introducing each band member in JS, and she says, here's our lead singer, Mickey Thomas, and which is not factual. He's one of our lead singers at that time. Her and even Paul at that time. She even reiterates this in the 1987 interview with David Letterman, where she says, our lead singer, Mickey Thomas, like she's just some background singer. She was consistent with this. She talked about how in other interviews, I think I saw one with Howard Stern, where she's talking about how she was maybe an average talent at best, but she had good charisma and a lot of luck. So someone who never was full of herself. She's interesting. She does artwork, writes books. She reads. She's read studied medical books to argue with doctors about experimenting on animals and stuff, and just really a fascinating person. So, gorgeous person, wonderful, haunting voice, great sense of humor, very, very intelligent, long-lived Grace Slick, 81 years old. We thank her for her contributions in JS as well as Starship. Slicky! Alright, so the content, whoops. The content here, it starts off with a song called The Burn. A great intro song, by the way, has a real catchy hook to the beginning. Bernie Taupin is back. Remember, he wrote Elton John's collaborator, was the main writer on We Built This City. He's back with The Burn, which could have been a hit if it was released as a single. It's a good song. Also have Martin Page involved in that one. Martin Page returning in a much expanded role. He writes, I think, well, we'll see, at least 3 songs on this LP. The second one is called It's Not Enough. You saw that in the opening of this video. Martin Page again, as well as Tommy Funderburk. Martin Page, a really underrated musician, and I think he's just a wonderful songwriter. You might remember him from he had his own top 20 hit with In the House of Stone and Light from 1994, and that was about it for him solo, but a very good writer, and he really nails it with the song It's Not Enough. A lot of credit to Bloomfield and Baldwin on this one with the bass and the drums. Chiquiso gets a nice little guitar solo in there, and Mickey just at his best, just has a real feeling in his voice during this song. Yeah, so It's Not Enough is my personal favorite song by Starship, and it's not even close. In fact, it might be, of all the songs we've talked about from 1974 to 1989, it could be my number one favorite. I'm not doing a video, at least yet, on my top 10 for JS and S, but that one is way up there. Trouble in Mind is some interesting writers on this one. So Trouble in Mind is also it's good. I didn't mean to stay all night, which had a really good video. It was a single. Surprised it only got to number 75 on the chart. This one, a lot of people say that this LP sounds very Def Leppard, and especially this song. It has a very Def Leppard sound to it. I'm not even a fan of Def Leppard, but for some reason that sound works with these musicians, and I really like it. It's no coincidence that people make that connection. The producer on this song and the first, I think 3, it looks like 3 songs is, or at least partial producer, is Mike Shipley, who was the producer of Hysteria, the 1987 Def Leppard LP. That's why that sound is they're very similar. The writer of the song was, yes, John Mutt Lange, and it also has that Mutt Lange sound to it, the vocal delivery on it, and everything else. Has that Romeo's Daughter, which was an 80s band he produced. It has kind of that sound on it. If you told me that this album was produced by Mutt Lange, I would believe you, because it really has that sound. It really does help it. I think it's better than what Peter Wolf gave to them. Send a Message. This is where you have Mickey Thomas writes this song, and you also have a partial writing credit by Mark Morgan, the newcomer, the keyboardist. So he's going to co-write on 2 songs here. 3 songs actually. Okay, Send a Message. Pretty good song. Now, the sixth track, Wild Again, is that's the one that I mentioned. It was a single, but that was a single that came out, I believe, in 1988. It came out before this LP was released. It's a song that was originally on the it was on the soundtrack of the Tom Cruise movie Cocktail, and like I said, it's an excellent song. But it was not on the original LP release of this. It came out on the kind of too dark to see, but it's on the CD release, which came out a few years later. So when I do my rankings, I will not count the CD release with Wild Again. I will just count the LP, just the LP release that does not have it, just to keep things, the purest. Okay. If I did include that, it would help this album even more. All right, the seventh track is the title track, "Love Among the Cannibals," written mostly by Mickey Thomas. You see there, Mark Morgan had a hand in it too, in the writing. This was kind of a commentary on the bickering that went on, not just from Grace Slick's departure, but prior to that in 1984 with the splitting up and the lawsuits, and there were more lawsuits to come, and he was making this comment about how the people that were doing all this bickering came from that Summer of Love generation, and how they were supposed to be all about love and everything, but then they started fighting within each other. So he has the line in there about, "I heard you sing about love, but that was a long time ago." It's a decent effort as far as Mickey Thomas as a songwriter, and it's kind of a rare thing to see him kind of taking a shot at some of his former band members. But it's a good it's got good drums on it, and it's a good title track. I really like it. It's one of Mickey's better efforts as a songwriter. We Dream in Color is another good one. Also Morgan again on this one, and Mickey Thomas. You see there, it says that little dream sequence thing in there. It's got this long, about over a minute. It's about a minute and a half thing where it's a little music intro, and you hear this thing with a speech from Martin Luther King. It's a little weird to have that in there, but it kind of fits. It kind of gives you a little break from the previous songs, and kind of a nice little intro. I have no problem with it. It's good. And We Dream in Color is not one of the better songs on this album, but another solid effort from Mickey Thomas as far as writing. Healing Waters is the reason that you have Martin Page again on this one. Healing Waters is the reason that I picked up this CD at a pawn shop, because I thought it was, when I saw Mickey perform live once, he did a song called Walk With Me, and the lyrics are like, "Walk with me down by the water," and it was a newer song that his band was sort of working on. They never released it on any kind of album or anything like that I'm aware of. And when I saw that title, I thought maybe that's the song that he played, Healing Waters. It's not, but it's still a pretty good song. It's kind of a slower paced. Martin Page wrote it, so it's good. And I've always liked Healing Waters. Blaze of Love is, you get some outside writers on this one. Chris Thompson, John Van Tongeren. It's probably, if I could choose a weak song on this LP, it'd be Blaze of Love. It has too much of a Bon Jovi type of title, and even sounds a little bit like them, so not bad, but it's one of the weaker ones. They wrap it up with another Mickey and Chiquiso written song, "I'll Be There," a nice ballad. It's a little, the lyrics are a little limited, but it's still good. I like the song "I'll Be There." It was played at the end of a movie from 1989 called Gross Anatomy, starring Matthew Modine and Daphne Zuniga. I've never seen it, but hey, they got a movie. They got a movie spot. And I mentioned at the beginning, you have this is a good thing. Starship themselves have more of a hand in the production of this LP, which is really good. And it really, that's why Mickey says that this is his favorite Starship album. I don't know if that means JS included, but I agree with him. This is my favorite Starship LP of the three that they did in the 80s. And it has more of a focused, they just seem more confident, like they had really kind of found that zone of what they were trying to do. And it really shows that it was great that they were able to regain the control of the production efforts that they lost starting with Knee Deep in the Hoopla. And also you see more of the songwriting from within the band coming through, which was mostly absent from the last two albums. So you see a good effort. It feels like a good effort from the band. It's nice and cohesive. Alright, so as we listen to Healing Waters, I want to talk about how, and we alluded to this back on the Knee Deep in the Hoopla Part 7 premiere, about the parallel universes in the Jefferson world. In 1989, it was a real beginning point of what was to come for the future as far as that. And the very same year, almost around the exact same time, you had Grace Slick showed up at a show and performed the song Wooden Ships with Paul Kantner, and I believe Jack Cassidy was there, and it was a reunion of sorts. And the members of Jefferson Airplane finally decided, many years after completely splitting up, they were going to get back together, and they released this self-titled album. You see right here, there's Grace, there's Marty. So all the original members, well, obviously not singing, but all the members from Surrealistic Pillow, okay, let's put it that way, got back together, with the exception of drummer Spencer Dryden. He was not there. I don't know if he wasn't invited or what, but there's Jack Cassidy, Jorma Kaukonen, Marty, Grace, Paul Kantner. Now, interestingly enough, the album Love Among the Cannibals and this self-titled LP were released around the same time, and this one only peaked at number 85 on the charts. It didn't go gold, so it didn't do very well in the sales. Love Among the Cannibals did better as far as sales and chart position. But the critics were very favorable as far as the tour. So the JA tour, which was a one-time thing, went very well for them. They're all they weren't even that old. They were like late 40s. I mean, Grace turned 50 that year. So, but at that time, you didn't hear about bands playing that they were that old going on tour. But it did very well. I think it was for the most part JA songs. They did. I know for a fact they did Miracles was included in the set list at times. Maybe some other JS songs. They even brought Papa John in for a few of the shows, which was good. So, like I said, so a successful tour, not a very successful album, and Jefferson Airplane would never reunite again after that. Meanwhile, the Starship was touring around the same time in the fall of 1989, and suddenly Mickey was looking out into these audiences, and he was seeing that they were lucky to draw even 1,000. So things they had every reason to believe that their audience would still be there. There's even the promotion of the LP and the single "It's Not Enough" went well. There's even a video of them on what appears to be the Arsenio Hall show playing it, and everything looks tight. But the audience started to fade, and it was very concerning to see how much they had lost, even from the No Protection tour. You saw the crowd size and No Protection, and it dissipated tremendously. And just when things couldn't get any worse, then came the infamous evening of September 23rd, 1989. So Starship was in Scranton, Pennsylvania for a show. The show was canceled that night because of weather. It was an outdoor show, so they went to a small club to celebrate Craig Chiquiso's 35th birthday. There's Craig Chiquiso. Amazing, he's still only 35 at this point after all those years in the band. But Mickey was, in the early hours of the next morning, he was assaulted. He went to the hospital. His injuries were so bad that he required 3 titanium plates inserted into his face. He also had broken ribs and cracked bones around his eye. He literally had to have part of his face removed and then put back because of the injuries and the severity of it. So initially, Mickey claimed that he had no clue who had hit him. He'd been drinking, and the manager, Bill Thompson, who wasn't even there, backed the story up and told the press, like, yeah, it happened outside his hotel room. He was drunk and he doesn't remember much. The Scranton police said that the Starship crew and the members were not very cooperative, and witnesses hadn't come forward. There were initial reports on the news that what happened was it was a jealous boyfriend of a fan who punched Mickey several times during an autograph session at the Hilton where they were staying. And then the story was changed in an RCA press release, that's the band's label, where they claimed that he was beaten up when he tried to defend the honor of one of the band's female backup singers. They were using female backup singers at the time. So all of the upcoming dates for Starship were naturally canceled. So was Donnie Baldwin. So he was let go from the band, and then the truth started to come in that, first of all, let's back up. He had been a friend of Mickey's all the way back to Elvin Bishop Band. Mickey brought him into Starship. However, they had kind of been at odds recently. They admitted they had been in a shoving match back in Colorado, and even though they said that Baldwin's departure from the group was creative differences, eventually it was finally confirmed by Mickey and the rest of Starship and the Starship brass that Baldwin was the one that was responsible for Mickey's beating. He never filed any charges against him, but Baldwin's days in the organization were now over, and the two never spoke again. And yeah, I recall being at a show in about 20 years ago here in Richmond, and being right up at the stage for the whole thing, and kind of noticing like Mickey's seeing the scars around his eyes and his face, and of course he usually wears sunglasses on the stage. And that was before I knew about this incident, but that certainly explains it. So he's had to, as he says, every time he looks in the mirror he sees a different face. He's been willing to talk about it. He He even says he misses his old friend. Yeah, like I said, he never filed any charges, but he even accepts some of the responsibility of what happened, regrets what happened. So we say goodbye to Donnie Baldwin. He was replaced on the tour, which actually continued, by Kenny Stravopoulos, who I know nothing about other than he replaced him for the rest of the tour. I believe it went into 1990. It couldn't have been many shows, but he was the drummer, and that was the only time he was drummer. He never came back. But we say adios to Donnie Baldwin. I've said before, he's I guess a decent drummer, and he did pretty well in those backing vocals in some songs. But it just every time I see him, I just can't help but think of I think about a mean, violent person. And it's not so much the incident, it's the fact that here we are 30 plus years later, and we have not heard a peep from him about any kind of remorse. And that's just really a sad, unfortunate thing, that you think you mellow with age and you want to, at least for your own conscience, just to get it off your conscience, you want to make right, wrongs that you've done. And anyone who's had plenty of alcohol has done things that wish they could take back, but just comes off as someone with no remorse, and just really speaks to the lack of character that he has.
When you talk about where the band started, because it's been kind of an unprecedented band. Craig was an original member of Jefferson Starship, which started in around 1974, I guess, and then I joined Jefferson Starship in 1979, and then we just shortened it to Starship in 85, I believe it was.
So this is a rare interview from 1989.
Joined the band in 87, right? Yes.
Inconspicuously absent is Baldwin from this interview, and I don't know if that's because this was before the incident and he just wasn't available, or if this is after the incident. But it's hard because Mickey mentions going back on the road in 1990, so I have no idea, but it's an interesting listen. Alright, but let's leave on a high note. Love Among the Cannibals. One of the better albums of the 1980s that most people are not even familiar with. As we wrap up the final, we've reached the end of reviewing the LPs in the JS Starship catalog. But believe me, this is not the end of the saga. The next part 10 will be the aftermath. Everything that's happened from the tail end of 1989 up to the present moment. So I hope you guys will join me for that. Thanks for joining us tonight. Turn it up!